Well, last couple of lectures for our class. We're here on lecture 15, and we're going to first discuss uh, the articles that are in Poverty and Class on our website. So, the first article that we're going to discuss is Debunking um, Poverty in America. And a couple of key takeaways from this one. There's a discussion there about the causes of poverty, and I want you to make special note of something called the culture of poverty theory or thesis put forward by Daniel Moynihan, who's later going to become a senator. Um, he said basically the breakdown of the black family, poor single moms, uh, and bad programs are the reason that black folks are poor. Uh, Charles Murray, who wrote The Bell Curve from Harvard, said it's low IQ, that the poor, and particularly the poor black community, they just have a lower IQ. They're never going to make it. But what I find interesting and what I'd like you to note is what about bad elite decisions? We never seem to talk about how manipulation of, let's say, Wall Street markets or the banking industry needing bailouts. Uh, 2008, AIG and all of that needed a bailout. Wage theft, which costs billions of dollars every year, that affects the worker and hurts the worker, benefiting corporations. That unfortunately is never seen as a problem of poverty. Um, then there's the article about Imagine. What I want you to take away from this article, that your wage, the minimum wage, buys less than it did in 1970. Um, a quarter of the people of the old in this country are in poverty. All the money that we've been making over the past 50 years has gone to the 1%, not to the 99%. The rich pay less in taxes than workers do. Productivity in that same 50-year time period has gone way up, but wages have remained fairly stagnant. They've gone up a little, but not near as much as productivity. And what we've been told is, oh, if you're a hard worker, if you're productive, well, then you'll get the benefits. But what do we see? We don't see any of that. In fact, for the last 4 or 5 years, for instance, Elon Musk paid a tax rate of 3.27%. So the middle class tax rate's around 30%, working class tax rate's about 22%. Elon Musk, 3.27%. Then we talk about the article about how the media, that basically the poor are not pictured. We got 40 million people in this country that are poor. We don't see them, or we only see them in a certain kind of light, pictures of homelessness or inner city problems, all of which seem to reinforce this idea that they're undeserving, they've done something wrong, and that they're an eyesore. But yet the media continues to focus on the rich. Oh, they're so fascinating. They attend galas for good causes. Oh, what are they doing this week? And by giving them that attention, a constant media reinforcement of class in this country, separating the us and the them, making that tiny minority, hugely powerful minority, seem so much better than us. Class in America. The next article, we don't really talk about class very much. It's not okay to mention class in the United States, which I find odd, except, oddly enough, for the middle class. We have this mythologized middle class, which is actually shrinking. And I want you to remember the 4 myths they go over about the middle class, that we're all middle class. No, we're not. That's one of the things that a lot of Americans believe they're middle class when in fact they're solidly working class, but they've been told as long as they can maintain a lifestyle on a credit card, you're middle class. Second myth, that class doesn't matter. Oh, if you just work hard, you'll get there. When in fact we know that most of the 1% came from families in the 1%. that we're all of us are upwardly mobile, and that's all upwardly mobile, which that just doesn't make any sense. We know that you can actually go down as well as go up. And that we all have an equal chance at being rich. And that's also not true. The realities are that the class does matter, and the gap between the poor and the ultra rich continue to get worse and worse every single year. The next article about the 99% have the middle class because they've been losing economic ground. That's the reason that the middle class is shrinking. And what's interesting is that the people at the ultra wealthy end of the scale have created an interesting fall guy, a paper tiger for us all to hate, which is the liberal elite. And it goes on to talk about that. That's your enemy, not tax breaks to billionaires, but the people that perhaps want to help. That those liberal elites, those are your true enemies in this modern world that we live in, which wouldn't be so absurd if so many people didn't really believe that, and that the corporations that own the media that continue to give us this message, we accept that without really much of a thought about, hey, well, that doesn't really seem like a good way to think about our lives. Why do we keep accepting that version of the world? And our word for this video is, the secret word is The Daily Show. And the reason I'm doing The Daily Show is not only is it amusing in that it does talk about issues like class and how things are being misrepresented in both the media and our culture. There was a comic that she talked about her own sense of privilege, and she talked about how that she could go on a vacation and that was a privilege, that she could walk around in her neighborhood at night and not really fear, and that was a privilege. And that when we're discussing these privileges, it struck me that having health care and a safe neighborhood and housing, those were thought of by her as a privilege, that somehow that's not something that should be part of our concept of citizenship, which I find interesting because other countries like the French and Germans I speak to, they consider that part of their citizen birthright, that housing, education, health care, a job, that is something that the government should be doing, that's the reason that we have a government. And somehow this extended, what I can only say is a class war by the upper class on the rest of us, has gotten us to the point that we don't see those things, that those are considered unattainable privileges, and that, if you have a job, well, you should just be grateful, and that you shouldn't form a union or try to get better wages or better benefits. Meanwhile, of course, the elites, the CEOs, the stockholders, they're raking in record profits, record amounts of money, Musk, Zuckerberg, Bezos, but somehow we've been made to believe that they deserve that, and we're just somehow the bottom of the barrel and not to be deserving.